Now, to finish this up and make sure we can restart the quiz from inside that result screen, let's make sure that in the result screen we also have a button we can press to reset our question progress. And for that, we need to add a button below our text. How do we do that? How do we add things below other things, widgets below other widgets? Well, we need a column. So let's wrap our text in a column. And previously I did this manually, but actually with the Flutter extension installed in the IDE, we can do some automatic refactoring. For this, use the refactoring shortcut, which you can find in your key bindings if you're not sure which shortcut that was. And position your cursor, so click on the text here, and then press that shortcut. And you should now get a couple of options here. And normally one of them is wrap with column. If you don't have that, you can at least wrap it with a new widget and manually create a column. I do have it here, however, so I will press enter. And now we automatically have this wrapped in a column, and text is now already in the children array here. If we save that, now we see the centering is lost. That is the default behavior because the column by default takes all the available height of the viewport, so off the screen. And for the moment, we'll ignore that. We'll dive deeper into the depths of columns and rows and layouting in a separate section. So for now, let's live with that. And let's instead focus on adding an extra button below the text. We could add another raised button here, but I will add a flat button. Flat button is basically a button without a background color. Other than that, it's a normal button. It needs a child, which is basically the content displayed on the button. And here a text will do, and I will say restart quiz. And we also, just like on the raised button, need an onPressed handler. Now you know that onPressed needs a function reference, the address of a function. And restarting actually is some logic that probably has to be done in the main Dart file, because that is where we manage our current question index and the total score, and both needs to be reset to 0 in order to restart. So in the main Dart file, in the myAppState class, we can add a new method, reset quiz or whatever you want to call it. And the goal here is to set both question index as well as total score back to 0. Because if we do reset that to 0, especially when we reset the question index, when we do that inside of setState, which we of course have to do, so inside of that function which we pass to setState, if we do that, then you know that the build method of this myAppState class will be re-triggered. It will rebuild that tree and therefore also re-evaluate that condition and find out that now our question index is smaller than our question length again, and hence not render the result anymore, but the quiz. And that's exactly what we want. So now we have a reset function that should do the trick. Well, we need it here in main Dart in our myAppState class, but we want to trigger it from inside the result widget. However, that is something we did before as well. We simply need to pass a pointer to that function to the result widget. So I pass reset quiz without parentheses to the result widget. And in the result widget, we now need to accept this. So I'll add another property, a function, which is my reset handler or whatever you want to call it. And I will accept this as a second argument. So here, whatever I receive as a second argument is now stored in reset handler. And that is now what I bind to onPressed. So here we can bind reset handler. And with that, if we now save this, we see restart quiz. If I press that, indeed, we restart. Now, to make this stand out a little bit more, we can add some color, some text color here to the flat button, and maybe use blue here so that we can see that button a bit better. So now if I press that, we can dive in again. This is all looking good. We can now reset this. I won't argue the user interface itself is not the most beautiful one I've ever seen, but we'll learn more about building user interfaces, styling your applications, and also layouting, so that we can also center vertically when we're using a column, something we lost for now. We'll dive into all of that later throughout the course. For the moment, we had an extensive look at all the core basics you need to know about Flutter.